History of Saint Francis of Assisi, covering his life, spiritual development, legacy and influence, early life and background. Saint Francis of Assisi was born Francesco di Pietro di Bernardone in 1181 or 1182 in Assisi, in the Duchy of Spoleto, in what is now central Italy. His father, Pietro di Bernardone, was a wealthy cloth and merchant trader. His mother, Pica or Piccarda, was from a noble family, possibly originally from Provence, France. Although baptized Giovanni, his father later changed his name to Francesco, meaning Frenchman or of France, either because of his mother's origins or his fondness for the French language and culture. In his youth, Francis was known for enjoying the typical life of a privileged young man: parties, fine clothing, and leading social circles in Assisi. During his early years, he learned Latin, had exposure to literature and possibly elements of French, and was influenced by the culture of troubadours and courtly life. Turning point: military imprisonment and spiritual awakening. In about 1102, Francis joined a military expedition from Assisi to Perugia. He was taken prisoner during the conflict at Collestrada and remained captive for around a year. During his imprisonment, he suffered physical illness, and this time of sickness and confinement is often seen as a seed of his spiritual transformation. After his release, he attempted to continue his former lifestyle, including plans to join a military life under a count in Apulia. But on his journey, Francis had a mystical experience or vision which made him turn back to Assisi. He began to become uneasy with the luxury and indulgence of his previous life and started withdrawing from social engagements and attachments. A pivotal moment occurred at the small ruined chapel of San Damiano, located outside Assisi. While praying before a crucifix there, Francis is said to have heard a voice: "Francis, go and repair my house, which, as you see, is falling into ruins." Taking the command literally at first, he sold some cloth from his father's shop to help repair the chapel. The priest initially refused the money, prompting Francis to throw it out the window in frustration. His father and civic authorities challenged Francis for this. In response, Francis publicly renounced his paternal inheritance and even his clothes in front of the bishop, declaring that his true father was God. From that point, his life changed radically. He adopted poverty, humility, and a radical reliance on God's providence, founding the Franciscan movement. Within a few years, Francis began attracting followers who were likewise drawn to his message of living in poverty, simplicity, and devotion to Christ. In 1209, Francis and his first companions went to Rome seeking formal approval from the Pope for their way of life. Pope Innocent III gave them tacit approval to live according to the gospel, without formal rule at first, on the condition they stay faithful to church authority. Over time, the Order of Friars Minor Franciscans was formally established. Francis also helped found a female counterpart, the Order of St. Clare the Poor Clares, in 1212, under the guidance of Clare of Assisi. Francis believed in preaching, itinerant ministry, and working directly among the poor and marginalized. He and his companions lived without stable income or property, relying on alms and divine providence. He also placed great emphasis on humility, service, and a deep love for creation. He saw all creatures as his brothers and sisters, frequently referring to Brother Sun, Sister Moon, and even preaching to animals. Francis is credited with creating the first nativity scene Ciacci in 1223 in Greccio to help people more vividly enter into the mystery of Christ's birth. He also undertook a daring journey to Egypt in 1219, crossing into Muslim territory during the time of the Crusades to preach to Sultan Malik Ai Kamil in hopes of peace. This mission is considered an early model of interreligious dialogue, mystical experience, stigmata, and later years. In September 1224, while praying on Mount La Verna, Francis reportedly had a vision of a six-winged seraph and received the stigmata, the wounds of Christ, in his hands, feet, and side. This made him the first recorded person in Christian history to bear such marks. He is also widely revered as a model of humility, poverty, simplicity, prayer, peacemaking, and respect for creation. Among his lasting spiritual contributions are popular devotions, the Franciscan rule, the emphasis on the incarnation, and a theology of creation as sacrament, seeing God's presence in all creatures. In modern times, his legacy has inspired numerous movements for environmental stewardship, social justice, and interfaith dialogue. After receiving the stigmata, Francis suffered physically, endured great pain, became weak, and gradually lost his eyesight. Even in declining health, Francis continued to preach, guide his order, and write spiritual works, including prayers and his famous Canticle of the Creatures, also called Canticle of the Sun, praising God in creation. He regarded himself not as a priest, but as God's humble servant. He emphasized obedience and solidarity with the poor over ecclesiastical prestige. 4. On October 3, 1226, Francis died in Assisi, surrounded by his brothers, after stripping off his garments and lying naked on the bare ground as a final act of humility. Canonization, feast, and ongoing legacy. Francis was canonized by Pope Gregory IX just 2 years after his death, on July 16, 1228. His feast day is celebrated on October 4th. Over the centuries, the Franciscan movement grew dramatically, with numerous branches and orders carrying on his charism. Francis was proclaimed the patron saint of ecology and animals in modern times. In 1979, Pope John Paul II declared him patron saint of ecology. If this is helpful, please subscribe, like, share, and turn on the notification button for more insight.